Welcome to this video tutorial presented by oraclecoach.com. This is Claire Rajan, and in this video segment I'll continue explaining the constructs that are available in PL SQL for iterative control. Iterative control statements fall under the category of PL SQL constructs, and they are used in programs where a statement or a series of statements need to be executed repeatedly over and over again for a certain number of times or until a condition is met. In this tutorial, I'll be discussing the for loop statement. In my earlier tutorials, I showed you this example program, which was written to display the word hello on the screen 5 times. Notice that the program has been written with 5 DBMS output line statements, all of them displaying the word hello on the screen. I also explained that this program has been written with very poor programming logic because the action that had to be done was the same. In my last 2 video tutorials, I explained the loop statement and the while loop statement that allowed you to execute a statement or series of statements repeatedly for a certain number of times or until a condition is met or as long as a condition is true. In PL SQL, there are 3 types of loop constructs. All of them are used to execute a series of statements repeatedly. There is the basic loop, which begins with the word loop and ends with an end loop. The second is the while loop construct. The while loop construct executes the statements between the loop and the end loop as long as the condition is true. The third type of loop statement is the for loop. The for loop also has an end loop. You can use one of these or some of them interchangeably depending on your program. In this tutorial, I'll be discussing the for loop construct. In my earlier tutorials on the loop statement and the while loop statement, I explained the concept of a counter. The counter was needed to control the number of times a loop was executed. The variable that behaved as a counter had to be created by the programmer as a numeric variable that was declared in the declaration section. The programmer was responsible for writing the statements to modify the value of the counter in the program. In the for loop statement, you do not declare a variable that will behave as a counter in the declaration section. You define a variable as part of the for loop statement which behaves as a counter. The initial and the final values taken by the counter are also defined in the for loop. The for loop will automatically take care of modifying the value of the counter with each iteration. This slide shows you the syntax of the for loop statement. It reads as for variable name in, optionally you can have the word reverse, low value dot dot high value, followed by the keyword loop, followed by one or more executable statements. The for loop ends with an end loop. There's an example that has been displayed on the slide which is written as for I in 1 dot dot 5 loop DBMS output line hello end loop. The variable that's going to behave as a counter is the variable called I. The I has been declared in the for loop. It's not to be declared in the declaration section. The initial value of I will be 1, which is defined as the low value, and its final value will be 5, which is defined as the high value. For each iteration of the for loop, the variable I will automatically be incremented by 1. When it's incremented by 1, it's called an incrementing for loop. As long as I does not exceed the final value, the statements between the loop and end loop will be performed. As soon as the variable declared in the for loop goes past the last or the final value, which is the high value, execution of the for loop will stop. On this slide is the program that has been written to display the word hello on the screen 5 times. Notice there is no declaration section. The body of the program begins with the word begin. Within the body of the program is the for loop statement where the variable c1 has been declared with an initial value of 1 and a final value of 5. The statement to execute between the loop and end loop is to display the word hello. This program will display the word hello on the screen 5 times. An explanation of how the program will execute has also been displayed on the slide. You might want to take a few minutes to read it to understand how the execution occurs. A decrementing for loop is created when you use the word reverse. Notice that in the for loop it's been written as for C1 in reverse 1.5. The variable's initial value is the high value defined in the for loop, which in this case will be 5. For each iteration of the loop, the counter variable will decrement by 1. In this program, the statement between the loop and end loop is a DBMS output line statement that displays the value of C1. So when you execute the program, the current value held by the variable C1 will be displayed on the screen. When you write this type of decrementing for loop, the low value should still be written before the high value. That is why you see it written as 1.5 and not 5.1. The execution of this loop is also displayed on the slide. You might want to take a few minutes to go over it. On this slide is a program for you to try. You may want to pause the video for a few minutes and attempt the program, which is to write a PL/SQL block that will display the word hello on the screen 3 times. You're expected to use a for loop. The for loop should begin with the value 10. The solution to this program is on this slide. What the program is trying to highlight is the fact that the initial value of the counter did not matter in this program. It could have been any value of your choice. But what you should be careful about is to ensure that the final value that you write should be one that would take care of executing the statements between the loop and end loop for the number of times you want it to be executed. In this tutorial, I explained the for loop statement. The for loop statement is an iterative control statement that allows you to perform a series of executable statements repeatedly without coding them again and again. I hope you find this tutorial useful. For other videos, tutorials, and articles, you can take a look at the oraclecoach.com website. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening.